Today's agenda: Timna National Park, Masada, and Dead Sea. The Timna area is known for its copper. Archaeologists say that the mines are from the period of King Solomon, and that mining continued by the Israelites and the Nabateans into the 1st and 2nd century. We saw a great video while we were there. Unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to see any of the mines. While at Timna, we visited a life-size replica of the biblical tabernacle. Moses built this tabernacle to God's instructions in order to have a transportable sanctuary during the Exodus from Egypt to the Holy Land. This was an amazing place with an amazing teaching.
We do today, we join pieces together to make panels. It took them 11 months to build the tabernacle. And you'll see that the treasure, the gold, the silver, the copper, the unusual skins, the linen came from Egypt. After the 9th plague, darkness, God was attacking Ra, the sun god. That's when Moses said, "Go ask." And that's when Egypt gave all their wealth and treasure to Israel. So to keep in mind, we're very much like these very hard, thorny trees before we come to the Lord. And as we become available, when we come and ask for forgiveness, He shapes us in His service and covers us with this treasure for service. We'll see this more as we go in. But the 10th plague saved the firstborn of Israel, so God said, He took them to Mount Sinai, and there He made a strong covenant. You'll see in Jeremiah, God refers to it as His marriage covenant. So when they broke it by going back to idol worship, God calls it adultery, what it really is. So when Moses saw what they'd done, when he'd been up there 6 weeks, the equivalent of, he received all the instructions on the tabernacle, on all the laws, all of this. They had in the meantime given up waiting and built an idol, a golden calf, and they were worshipping this. So they broke their covenant with God. So when Moses saw this, he threw down the law and broke it. It was already broken. He called, "Who will come to me and stand for God?" And only his tribe, the Levites, came. So at Mount Sinai we see this big exchange. God asks to count the firstborn, the Levites, and He takes the Levites willing to stand for Him. You'll see this theme all the way through the tabernacle. God lays down what must be done, but He'll never take slave labor. Only those willing to bring the treasure. And He says, my people need to bring me the gifts. So Moses gave them a choice later, Joshua, you choose who you serve, the false gods or the one true. And then we live, later on we'll talk about it, we live by the consequence of what we choose. So notice He said, build it facing east. Adam and Eve were thrown out to the east. And the challenge was, my people bring me the gifts. So they choose God. They have to turn their back on the false. And this is what Paul tells us. We have to make the same choice. We can't be worshipping at God's table and the table of demons. We'll see as we go in, we'll talk about it again. Cherub angels God put east of Eden to stop them going back to the tree of life. You'll see in front of the parokah, in front of the Holy of Holies, the big parokah curtain with cherub angels. And Hebrews tells us that this curtain represents the Holy Spirit had not yet shown them how to return to the Father. And of course in the Garden of Eden, Genesis 3:21, God clothed Adam and Eve with tunics of skin. So God shed the blood of an innocent animal to pay for the sin of Adam and Eve. He introduced the life exchange system, and He finished it on the cross, where He, the innocent, died for the guilty. So we'll see all of this really is the gospel message as we go through. Okay? So it's only the Levites and priests that can enter. The people can bring their gifts to the gate, and the priest must present them on behalf of the people. Now look at the history, Genesis 9, after the flood, when they first given permission to eat meat. You can eat anything that creeps except never the blood. The life is in the blood that's poured out in the atonement. He repeats this in Leviticus 17. No one's to eat or drink blood that's poured out in the atonement. So that's why it was poured out around the altar. In Leviticus 9:24, God sent the fire. Fire came from God. So Esha Tamid, eternal flame. So the priests had to keep this burning, carry some wherever they went, take some to the incense altar twice a day, evening and morning. All the leftovers were put outside the camp. And they had to do a whole lamb, permanent sacrifice, every evening, every morning. Even when they ended up moving, they'd finish, then pack and follow. On the days they didn't have to move, the people brought their sacrifices. If it was for peace or for Thanksgiving, the blood was poured out, the first portion to the Lord, the rest the priest could eat. But every sin sacrifice, the blood poured out, the fat and the kidneys on the altar, but the whole body was burnt outside of the camp on the holy coals. So notice in Hebrews, Christ came to fulfill the law. He fulfilled the law of sin sacrifice. As our sin sacrifice, he was crucified outside. So he fulfilled the law of sin sacrifice. But he's also Passover lamb. Now the young male had to live in your house 4 days pure, the next day declared pure, sacrificed and eaten. So Christ came in on a donkey, Zechariah 9:9 prophesied, your king cometh on the foal of a colt. 4 days later in the evening he was arrested. Notice during that time he cleaned out the money changers in the temple. You know, he was purifying, and he was seen to be pure too. Because notice the next day he was at trial. Pontius Pilate said, I find no fault in this man, nor does Herod. So Jewish and non-Jewish rulers declared him pure, but he was still sacrificed. And he'd already introduced the idea of eating his Passover, the pure bread without yeast, without sin. This is my body given to you, take, eat. But then he did a shocking thing. He took wine after the meal, said, this is my blood of the new covenant, take, drink. It's the first time ever in Scripture anyone was commanded to drink the symbol of blood. Because he was declaring in that one act, he didn't come to cover, he came to take sin and give us all his life in exchange. The life is in the blood. That's why he said whenever we celebrate this, to remember him. Because on the cross he completed the law. His last word in Hebrew is hushlam, which really means paid in full. Shalem to pay, shalem, full, complete, perfect. So, and there are 3 curtains going in. He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So we have to walk through 3 curtains to get to the Holy of Holies. So let's go on in. It's just a replica, so you can take as many photos of everything as you want. 5 by 5 and 3 high was acacia wood covered with copper. Now copper represented judgment, so the first thing, judgment on sin. The blood poured out on the ground and on the horns, like the blood of atonement on the cross. So this represents the cross. No steps, but a ramp. They had to work modestly without exposing themselves. Pagan altars have steps with gods on them. You'll see up in Jeroboam and Dan built an altar, and the remains of it, you can see there are steps. It was a pagan system. But here, of course, rods, because the Levites had to hand carry. And of course, inside was the everlasting fire. They had to keep burning and carrying with them. And a grill or a net that they put the body or portion, so that all the ash became part of the holy cloth. Okay, so the wash basin has no measurements. We don't know its size. It was built from polished copper mirrors of the women. The temple was measured. It was called the sea. It was so big, 10 cubits across, 30 around on 12 cows. But here we have no idea. They had to put living water here from a spring. So all the names in the Bible, if you go and read where they camped, are names of springs in the desert. Some are still working today. You can go, I don't know which way you come, they camped at Yotvata, the Bible, down in the middle of all the tents. But the priests, one washes dirty, they'd take water out to wash their hands and feet before every sacrifice, and again before they went on duty in the holy place. So the Levites all day had to be bringing living water to replace it. And David tells us in Psalms, God's word is like the water that cleanses us. And in John, Christ said, come to me and I will give you springs of living water. So it's interesting to consider God put no limits on the living water, representing the living word, who is the Messiah. The word became flesh and dwelt among us. So already we see 1 John 1:9, Christ paid for our sin. So if we go and confess our sin, he's faithful to forgive us and cleanse us from all unrighteousness. This is still copper judgment. Now you can look down both sides of the building on the outside, because it's the same. It was covered with material layers, but we've opened so you can see all the construction. So, you know, you can see this side or this side. Each panel was 10 cubits by 1.5, acacia wood covered with gold, 20 boards each side, 6 at the back and 1 on each corner. So 48 boards made an open building. Each one stood in 2 silver bases, and each side 5 rods held it together, 1 through the middle of the wood and then 4 on the outside with rings. So very easy to take down and stack the building, the courtyard on 6 ox carts. And you'll see, you can read it written there, 580 Levite men from age 30 to 50, told by their name exactly which job they had.
Wow.
So very well organized. Now gold represents righteousness, silver redemption. So we have a picture of us. The wood, we've come to the Lord, asked for forgiveness, He shaped us in His service. The New Testament tells us each one is clothed with the robe of righteousness of Christ. We're standing in His redemption. And Ephesians 4 tells us the 5 gifts or ministries Christ gave to equip us, the body, for service. Apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher. So the building's a lovely picture of the body of Christ. The first covering over was fine linen, white, blue, purple, red, with a symbol of a cherub angel, the same colours woven into all the curtains. Very messianic. White, still today, represents purity. Blue, heaven. Purple, king. Red, blood. Mixed blue and red, we get purple. So our king is fully God, fully man, and he is pure. And this was 28 cubits. It covered from the base to the base. No one saw the gold. Then the next material was woven goat hair, 30 cubits, covered from ground to ground. No one saw the colours. Then the 2 skin layers, ram skins dyed red, the outside tachash, which is most likely sea lion, dolphin or whale. There's a lot of, I'll give you a website. We've put the scriptures out there and you can go. There's a museum even in Bet Shemesh that the rabbi shows how it must have been a whale skin. Still, marine animal skins, the most expensive leather on the world market. So it would have been very rare, very expensive, part of the treasure they were given. But these leather layers have no measurements. They were most likely open. They have an area on both sides to store all the gifts the priests used every day. Oil, incense, and the spices for the incense, and the flour for the showbread. Because notice another clue, in temple days, they didn't have a tent. So what did they do? They built rooms along the side to store all these gifts. So it's another clue that this area was open for the royal storeroom, sort of thing. But it gives us a lovely picture. Here we are in Christ's righteousness. He's covering us. And then there's the layers of like our skin, fibrils, blood vessels, and layers of skin. So here's a picture of us in the Messiah and the Messiah in us. Because it says in the New Testament, when the Holy Spirit lives within us, we are the ones carrying the treasure of heaven in bodies of flesh and blood. So a lovely picture here. Now the only wood that was never covered are these straight posts all around the courtyard, pure wood, with copper, judgment base, silver redemption top. The only pure human is Messiah, Yeshua. And he was the one that paid for our judgment. He brought us redemption. And the pure white linen surrounding, he promised, I will not leave you as orphans. So here's yet another picture of him surrounding us. Notice that he was the one that said, Moses wrote about me. This is what Moses wrote about, the tabernacle, the priestly duties. It's all about Christ. So let's go where only the priests and high priests went, to the holy.
And the 10 Commandments inside.
Oh.
This is the Lord spoke from between the cherubim. So it was from here that he spoke to Moses. It was probably on the other side of the curtain. And the Lord would speak, but anyway, and he's seated on the wings of the cherubim, above the cherubim.
After visiting the tabernacle, we stopped to see a small Egyptian temple dedicated to the goddess Hathor. This temple was built in the 14th century BCE and then later rebuilt after an earthquake by Ramesses II. Apparently, the Egyptians left the area in the middle of the 12th century, and the Midianites came along and they turned the temple into a desert shrine filled with Midianite jewelry and pottery. Next, we visited Masada. It's amazing to think that Herod the Great built this palace between 37 and 31 BCE. It's 1,800 feet on top of a mesa overlooking the Dead Sea on the eastern side of the Judean desert. In 66 CE, after the Romans had destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem, a group of Jewish rebels, they were called the Scalari, they fled Jerusalem and they settled on top of Masada after slaughtering a Roman garrison. In an article written called The Siege of Masada by Josephus, he writes about the battle, which happened in 73 CE. A Roman legion surrounded the site. They built a siege ramp and a tower to attack the Jewish rebels. Instead of being captured, the rebels executed a plan of mass suicide, and close to 1,000 people died. And when the Roman garrison breached the wall, they only found a couple of women and children alive. Wow.
So that's, what was that, what was this thing called?
Yeah, this is cool.
Oh, that's where they sat. Fancy room.
But that's probably where they sat there.
Yeah.
Well, but it's like a spa, right, where you just kind of. A big hot tub? Yeah, it's somewhere, you know.
Check that out.
What's in there?
Lockdown tub.
Huh? Sunken tub. Can I take a peek?
Those are people that want privacy.
Ah, yeah, sunken tub. Wow. Thank you.
Probably the heat thing. The light. Oh, those are those hollow things that the heat is in. The brick. Remember you said that? So this is where they got the heated floor idea.
Yeah.
From the Romans.
Needed a heat floor.
I know.
Are you watching everybody? Let's everybody look at Bear.
double floors, I got it.
That's my girl. Oh, he is good. Okay, now Bear would like to see his son. Yes. She practiced last night with Dave. Your boy. Cat play guitar.
Here we go. Yeah. Right there. They probably walking man of faith. That's a lot of fear. A lot of power.
It takes a lot of money to.
Yeah, it was about money, right?
We left Masada and headed for a hotel at the Dead Sea. The hills that you see are actually made of salt. It's kind of amazing. And tomorrow's agenda is En Gedi, Qumran, Jericho, and Bet Shean.